Welcome to the Weekly Roar, coming live from the Lion's Den, helping new managers become great leaders and awesome bosses. And now, here's your host, Greg Storch.
This is the Weekly Roar. All right, I'm just waiting for Sonya to jump on, and once she does, I'm going to go ahead and join her to my live. We're going to go 30 minutes today because I really want to make sure that we tackle this law together. I'm continuing the growth series, and I have a special guest, Sonya Etchemendy, and we're going to be talking about the law of contribution today. For those of you that may not know me, if you're catching this on the replay for the first time, you're catching the growth series. But I'm Greg Storch. I'm the founder of Lion Enterprise, a leadership development and coaching company. There you are. There you are. Hi, Sonya.
Hi. Sounds great. Well, I want to thank everybody for their patience, really.
Yeah, thank you for jumping on and getting through it. All right, guys, let's get started. And I'm welcoming Sonya Etchemendy here. She's the founder and CEO of Etch Your Life. I love the name. I love it. And she actually is an executive director with the John Maxwell team, and of course, a certified speaker, coach, and trainer. And you know what else? She is a retired federal employee, a civil servant. She has served in our federal government agencies for 30 years. And Sonya, what I didn't share with you is when I was looking at your background, you and my wife have a lot in common. My wife is a contract specialist, and she comes from your world.
Yeah. She's a very smart lady.
She is a very smart lady. I mean, of course. No, I'm just kidding. She is very, very smart. So thank you, Sonya, for taking time out. And thank you, everybody, for jumping on and joining us for our fifth special on our growth series. And today we're talking about the law of contribution. And the law of contribution basically says that growing yourself enables you to grow others. And so that's what we're going to talk about. And when I think about this law, the very first quote that actually comes to me is, "Be a river, not a reservoir." And up until this point, we've been talking about our own personal growth. But we get to this law, and this is the first time we talk about how growing ourselves enables, it's an enabler to adding value to other people. So if for no other reason than making yourself better, it gives us the ability to help others be better too. So last week we discussed the importance of expansion with my friend and your friend also, Sonya, Diane Dick, one of my favorite leaders. Play with Purpose and legacy training and development. She's an amazing person, and I just loved our conversation. And this week, Sonya, as you know, you're joining me to talk about contribution. Growing yourself enables you to grow others. And you can't give what you don't have, right? So since I've seen this modeled by my guest, by the way, folks, and I thought, who better to share insights into this law? This is why I picked this law just for Sonya. So please welcome my friend and colleague, Sonya Etchemendy.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you. And thank you all for tuning in, too. I can't see your comments and questions.
Yeah, if we don't see your comments and questions, I can see them, but I don't know if they're real time. If we don't get to them live, believe me, Sonya and I will definitely go back after this live is over, and we'll go through and we'll definitely answer questions and respond to all your comments. So please comment below, and if you hear something you're really enjoying from Sonya, give her the thumbs up, send her some hearts, show her the love, because it's time for us to get into the law of contribution. So Sonya, actually what I've been doing each week is, before we jump into the actual law, what I like to do is I like to have my guests share a little bit about their own personal growth journey. So when did you start, and when did you become aware of your growth journey, and what has that been like for you?
Wow, I started my growth journey before it ever had a label. I look back and I really think my first real growth journey was started when I was 10 years old. And I'll talk about that a little later. But then my next huge growth journey started when I was in my early 20s. And then all throughout my career, I didn't know I was on a growth journey. And to be honest, I didn't have that label until I joined the John Maxwell team. I didn't realize I had been on a growth journey. So that added a lot of value to the journey I've been on.
Hmm. That's, yeah. I feel the same. Like, I had no idea. I was listening to the audible of the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, and John mentions this growth plan. And I'm like, what? Growth plan? Nobody told me a growth plan. So that's awesome. 10 years old. That's pretty young.
Yes, it is. And in fact, the stained glass window you see behind me is part of my growth journey that started at 10 years old. And the stained glass window used to be in my grandmother's home. It's over 100 years old. And my grandmother is the person who was the biggest influencer in my life. At 10 years old, taught me about who I am from within, who I can be, my value to the world. And I never knew that I had any value. I didn't know how to deal with difficult situations. I didn't understand growth at all. And my grandmother taught me that. So the stained glass window is a huge piece of something else I'll tell you about later.
I love I love the backdrop and I love the story with it. That's amazing. 100 years old and still in the family and part of your home.
Yes, yes.
That's awesome. Okay, so that's an amazing journey to start at such a young age and realize later in life that that's really the path you've been on. Um, I love the part in this book where John's highlighting the fact that most people who make personal growth part of their lives do it to add value just to themselves, but those people are likened to being a reservoir. They keep the water in, whatever they have, they keep, right? And we really need to be like rivers, pouring what we have into others. And that statement right there is exactly why I picked this law for you, Sonya, because of that very statement. You are like a river, always pouring into other people. So what I wanted to ask you to talk a little bit about, if you were trying to explain this law to somebody, what would you say to them?
Wow. Thank you, Greg. I have learned that you have to have an abundance attitude. You have to have the attitude that you're always going to be filling up. You're always going to be going down that river and more water coming in. You've just got to know that's going to happen. And I'll share with you something that happened at an IMC about a year ago. I was in the cafeteria and I wanted some coffee to go, but they didn't have the to go cups out yet. So I went up to one of the servers and I said, "May I please have a to go cup?" And he goes, "Yes, I'll run get you one." They're so nice there. Another server, I found out later, his name is Andy. Andy was standing there and he looked at me and he said, "Is all this John Maxwell stuff really work?" And so I said, "Well, what do you mean by work? What are you working on?" And he said, "Well, I just feel like I don't want to be stuck in this job. I want to do better. So I went and I bought one of his books and I really don't know what to do with it." And so I said, "Well, what book did you buy?" And he said something about 15 Laws of Growth. So, yes. So I said, "Andy, listen, here's my card. Connect with me on Facebook because I want to give you a gift." And he said, "Oh, what kind of gift?" And I said, "I want to give you the gift of being able to take yourself through that book. And it just so happens I've got a mastermind starting on that book when I get back from the IMC, and I want you to be my guest." Well, when I do a mastermind on the 15 laws, I do the four core laws that John talks about, the last one being the law of contribution. So I went through those four laws with Andy. And then I told Andy, I said, Andy, I will coach you for the rest of the year so that, the annual growth plan is you do four laws in the first month. And then each month after that, you pick a law, hanging on to the other four or five or six, um, functioning using those every day. And I told him, I said, I will be your coach for a year. And he said, what's this going to cost me? And I said, your time. Your time is what it's going to cost you. That's it. So Andy and I went through the basic four in 1 month. We've been doing one a month. We really wanted to finish by this IMC, but I think we're going to be a law behind. And I haven't seen Andy in real life since we started this. But that's an example of knowing that you're going to have a mindset of abundance and that something's always going to be flowing into you, and you've got to be ready to pour that into somebody else. And I have to tell you that you just can't get any better than giving something like that to someone. And if I hadn't had that in my cup, I never could have poured into Andy.
Wow. You really nail on the head. And I think the key with this law is the abundance mindset, because when you feel like there's enough for everybody, you don't mind giving what you have away.
Absolutely.
When you have that scarcity mindset, you want to hold everything because there's not enough, and you don't want to give up and have somebody take what's yours, right? So I love that dovetail into the abundance mindset, and that's what enables people to actually, personify this law. Really, this is that's amazing. I never put those two together, but yes, that's the key. You nailed it. I love it. Lucky he ran across you. That was divine intervention.
Absolutely. I say God puts us where we are supposed to be, and he put me right there with Andy that day. Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Oh my God, I love that story. That was the perfect way to talk about what this chapter is really all about. So thanks for sharing that. Let's see. In this chapter, the law of contribution, John actually put out 7 suggestions for us, he says, here's some suggestions on ways that you can start to cultivate an attitude of contribution.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to know what all 7 of those suggestions that John Maxwell made, I'm highly recommending, if you have not purchased this book yet, get your hands on the book. I mean, this paperback book is like $12 on Amazon Prime. It's an inch and a quarter thick. It's a great, smooth read. The way John writes is phenomenal, and it will either start you on your growth journey, or it will reignite where you've left off and push you further. So anyway, those 7 are outlined in there, but Sonya, what I want to ask you, what would be your top 3 suggestions for someone wanting to cultivate this attitude of contribution? They may be the same as John's, they may be your own, it doesn't matter, but what are your top 3?
Well, John's are so good. I'll just pick from his. The one that I would say first is to be grateful. And that's saying a lot. Some people may think, be grateful. Okay, I'm grateful. But I mean, really be grateful. For an example, when you fail, think of that as just another credential, because you got to learn from it. And be grateful for that failure, because you've got another credential under your wing to take with you. And, when I was in my career, I think I was most successful when as I was climbing up the ladder, I would grab the hands of other people who wanted to be where I was, and I would grab them up the ladder with me, and some of them passed me by. And I was actually grateful to see that happen. I know it makes no sense, but I'm still friends with those people today. We have since all retired, and the value that was added in being grateful for their success, it was tremendous. So be grateful. The next one I picked is don't let people own you.
I love that one.
As I look back on my life, and I see where relationships I had with either family, close friends, I allowed them to own me. And therefore, my relationship was not whole. It was not good. I was having the relationship totally on their terms because I wasn't secure enough. I didn't know who I was to have it on my terms. And one example is I have had a relationship with someone my entire life that I've never been able to connect with until I refused to have this person own me anymore. And I started being myself and allowing them to be themselves and be accepting of them. And so they don't own me anymore. And we've got a great relationship today. Let's see. Oh, I love this one. Define success as sowing, not reaping. Listen, I know we're short on time, but I have to share this story with you.
Oh, we're all the time in the world.
I turn 68 next month, and I'm very, very proud of that. Well, in those 68 years, my 30 years in the government, and since then I own businesses, I've got a lot of plaques and certificates, and I could wallpaper a couple of bathrooms, with the certificates. And my husband has also had some great successes. And so the first thing we did with all that is we built a room, an office, and we called it the I Love Me room. And we put all of our stuff all on the walls, kind of in order as we got them, just to remind us of our successes. Well, my husband and I were talking about that recently, and we've really got to stop referring to that as the I Love Me room because it really is a room about the value we've added to people. And so all of those things up there, I cannot say that my success was based on reaping all of that. It was sowing. The very first plaque from 1982 was when I was the den mother for my son's Cub Scout troop. And they gave me a plaque. And I thought about all the young boys I poured into. Oh, I loved that. And I treasure that just as much as other awards. Um, in what year was it? 85, I think it was. I was a civilian of the year for the Air Force, which launched me into a whole nother level. And I ended up being one of the negotiators on the Hubble telescope. Now,
Well,
I don't tell that to a lot of people. I'm very humble about that. Humble, Hubble kind of goes together. But when I look at that award, I think of the people that affected. I mean, there have been discoveries made in this universe. And even though I negotiated a very tiny piece of it, when I look at that, I don't think, well, I helped negotiate the Hubble. I think of all the people that affected. So everybody needs to define their success as sowing and not reaping. And finally, keep growing to keep giving. This 15 Laws book, of all the books I've read, I've got a master's degree and I'm halfway to a PhD. And I have to tell you, I have never had a book change my life like the 15 Laws. And it's the book that keeps on giving. So I keep doing the 15 Laws, and every time I do it, I learn something from the people doing it. I did it with my husband, just he and I. Oh my goodness. Woo, that was hard. Because I'm an owl and he's a lark. You know what I mean? That's a whole nother subject. But it can come out in your daily activities to keep growing, keep giving. And I'll tell you about a daily activity we do in a minute. But those are my three. I didn't mean to be so wordy.
oh, no, that was brilliant. So I had some thoughts while you were talking. So your first one was the be grateful. And what you said reminded me of that famous quote by Zig Ziglar: "You'll help enough people get what they want in life, you can get what you want in life."
Yes. And can I share a funny story with you?
Absolutely.
I've always wanted to be on stage time, okay? At the IMC, always wanted to be on stage time. And I keep going. I'm about to go to my seventh IMC. And only one time I didn't go for stage time. And so every time I go, it's like I make it to the finals, but I never make it on stage. It's like I feel like the Susan Lucci of stage. Now, if anyone doesn't know who Susan Lucci is, Google her. I was raised in the 1900s, and so the people today, they can just Google. But my point is, every time I've grown, and I speak publicly on stage to a lot of community events and churches, and I have to tell you, if I wasn't going to stage time, I may not make it there on Monday morning, but I always come back with great critiques from Roddy. I'm better at what I do when I get on the stage. I'm more secure, and so I'm grateful for that opportunity. And something you said made me think of that. So sorry.
I love it. I share the dream as well. Stage time with, but see, here's the difference between you and I. You and I both have the same desire to be on stage time, but the difference between us is that you've actually taken action to do it. You've actually engaged Roddy. I haven't done any of those things. So guess what? Not be on stage time until I take that first step to engage in the process, right? So another thing you said was don't let people own you. And I read a book called The Power of Influence. And as you know, leadership is influence, right? Nothing more, nothing less. And in that book, it said, and this is what reminded me of this because it was, not letting people own you. It says that when people do something for you, you should always return the favor to them, just to not be indebted to them. Because if you don't return the favor, you will be. They will own you, right? They will have that over you. They've done something for you and you haven't returned it. So I always learn to always return a kind favor to somebody, even when they're being generous and they aren't looking to return it. Always be on the lookout to return the favor when that opportunity presents itself. And that's how you stay away from not having people own you.
Absolutely. One thing, you you contribute time, experience, and resources, right? And so there's something that my husband and I love to do every holiday, every Thanksgiving, every Christmas. We just show up at a Walmart and we look for shopping carts that are full, little kids hanging. And I got to tell you, the day before Thanksgiving is when a lot of small businesses give out their bonuses. And so some people just can't shop for Thanksgiving dinner until then. And we love to approach those people and say, we want to buy your Thanksgiving dinner. And they look around, they're like, where's the camera? We're like, we're serious. And I'll never forget this one time. She had a small chicken. And I said, don't you want a turkey? And she said, well, yeah. So I told her husband, I said, go back and get the biggest turkey you can because you'll have leftovers. He said, are you serious? And so my point is this, we get up to check out. We have never told these people who we are. It's not important. We don't tell them our names. And almost 100% of the time, they say something like, I don't know how to pay you back, or I can't pay you back. And I say to them, yes, you can. Because whether you believe it or not, and you better start believing it, one day you will be in the same position I'm in. And so that's when you pay me back. You do for them what I did for you today, and you've paid me back.
I love
So,
it.
yeah, love it. It's a great feeling.
So my wife and I used to do something very similar to that during Christmas time. We'd go to the Christmas tree lots and we'd just randomly pick a family and pay for their tree without them knowing. And then we just load our tree and take off.
Awesome. Awesome. When Pay It Forward got popular, I thought that was such a great idea. And so I would pay it forward and I'd take off because I was embarrassed. I didn't know if they would say, don't do that, or I'd always take off really quick. And no one ever paid it for me. But 2 weeks ago, I was in a line and the lady said it was $5 less than what I thought it was going to be. And she said, the gentleman in front of you paid $5. And I said, oh gosh, that's awesome. And she said, someone started it this morning and it's been going on all day long. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to pay the $5 for the guy behind me. So I get up to the window. He finds out. He honks his horn. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I thought to myself, from now on, maybe I'll just wait and give them the pleasure of thanking me because that made me feel good when he said, thank you so much. But yeah, it's happening. People are paying it forward. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all these stories and your favorite. What's your final thought on the law of contribution before we wind up today?
Oh, and my final thought, it's never ending. It's never ending. You got to keep your cup full or you can't pour into others. And I can't stress enough the 15 laws of growth, the entire book. I don't know what else to say, only I believe strongly that we were put here to add value to people. I believe it. And I have something in common with Edison. I go to bed at night and I say, Lord, I hope I added value to someone. And when I wake up in the morning, I say, Lord, guide me to someone that I can add value to today. I do that every single day. And I think that's what the law of contribution is about. Giving what you have to build up and add value to others.
Absolutely. Well said, Sonya, because we can't give what we don't have.
Right.
I love it. I want to thank you for taking time out to join me. Fifth law, that was awesome. What great insight. I love your stories. They're so pertinent to what we're trying to discuss here with the law of contribution. I knew this was your law. For all who joined us today, thank you all so much for joining us. I appreciate your support. I'm going to be back here again next week, same place, same time, with another colleague and great friend of mine all the way from sunny San Diego, California. Steve Finch is the founder of Kinetic Coaching, and he's going to be joining me to talk about the law of the mirror and how you've got to see value in yourself in order to add value to yourself. So until then, everybody, remember, be powerful, but stay poised, just like a lion. Bye, everybody.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for watching the Weekly Roar live event at lionenterprise.com. If you enjoyed this video, please tell others to join us each week here in the Lion's Den. Thanks again, and see you next week.